Don't slow down. The engine growled as the SUV surged forward, tires slicing through wet earth. Mud exploded into the air, thick, violent, slamming into the old woman's coat, her face, her hands. She cried out, cane skidding, groceries spilling into the rain. Inside the car, Charlotte laughed. Not nervous, not surprised, amused. "Did you see that?" she said, breathless with delight. Then the old woman lifted her head. Mud streaked her skin, her eyes locked on the windshield, sharp, knowing, unafraid. And in the front seat, Nathaniel Whitmore went completely still, because he knew her, and because in that moment, Charlotte had just destroyed more than a stranger. The rain had been coming down all afternoon, thin, persistent, the kind that slicked the world into something reflective and false. It streaked the tinted windows of the SUV as it glided through the private road, tires humming softly against wet gravel. Inside, the air was warm, expensive, quiet. Charlotte Whitmore sat back in the leather seat, legs crossed, heel dangling from her toes. She watched the rain without seeing it, scrolling idly through her phone, bored in the particular way that came from having too much and feeling nothing. The kind of boredom that pressed against her ribs and demanded to be fed. "Are we late?" she asked, not looking up. "No," the driver said. His voice was careful. Everything about him was careful. Charlotte sighed. She tapped her screen again, then let the phone drop into her lap. Her reflection hovered faintly in the glass, perfect hair, flawless makeup, a face practiced in looking amused. She wore confidence the way she wore her coat, tailored, intentional, meant to be seen. Across from her, Nathaniel Whitmore stared ahead, hands folded, spine straight. His jaw was set in that familiar, unreadable line, disciplined, distant. He hadn't spoken in 10 minutes. She glanced at him, studied the way his eyes never drifted to her anymore, not like they used to, not even like obligation required. "Did you hear me?" she asked, not looking up. "I did," he said, without turning. Something sharp twisted in her chest. She leaned back again, annoyance flaring hot and fast. There it was, that emptiness, that quiet dismissal that followed her everywhere now, a wife reduced to background noise. The SUV slowed. Ahead, near the edge of the road, an old woman moved carefully through the rain, bent shoulders, a cane tapping unevenly against the mud, a plastic grocery bag clutched to her side, sagging with water. Charlotte's eyes lit up. "Oh," she said softly, a smile tugging at her lips. "Look at that." The driver eased off the accelerator. "Don't," Charlotte said. He hesitated. She leaned forward, elbows on her knees, excitement flickering across her face. "Don't slow down." Nathaniel's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. For a fraction of a second, something passed through his expression. Uncertainty, maybe. He said nothing. The driver's foot pressed down. The tires spun, biting into the wet earth. Mud flew. It burst upward in a violent spray, slapping against the old woman's coat, her stockings, her face. The grocery bag tore open, cans rolled into the road. The woman cried out, stumbling, her cane skidding sideways. Inside the SUV, Charlotte laughed. It rang out, bright, careless, alive, a sound that cut through the rain like glass. "Oh my God," she said, breathless. "Did you see that?" She clapped a hand over her mouth, shoulders shaking. "I didn't think it would splash that much." The driver's knuckles went white on the wheel. Nathaniel didn't move. Outside, the old woman struggled to steady herself. Mud dripped from her coat in thick rivulets. She bent slowly, painfully, to retrieve her fallen cane. Her hands shook, but her movements were deliberate, controlled, dignified. Charlotte watched through the window, laughter tapering off into a satisfied smirk. There was a thrill buzzing under her skin now,
a warmth she hadn't felt all day, all week. "Go," she said lightly. "We're going to be late." The SUV began to roll forward. Then the old woman lifted her head. Her face was streaked with mud, rain threading through the lines of her skin. Her eyes, dark, sharp, unflinching, cut straight through the glass. They locked onto Charlotte. The smile slid off Charlotte's face. For reasons she couldn't name, her breath caught. There was no pleading in that gaze, no outrage, just recognition, as if the old woman saw her clearly, saw through the coat, the car, the money, and found something wanting. Charlotte shifted, discomfort crawling up her spine. She told herself it was nothing, just a look, just an old woman embarrassed in the rain. In the front seat, Nathaniel went rigid. His hand tightened on his knee. His breath stuttered once. His eyes widened just enough. "Stop the car," he said. The SUV halted instantly. Rain pattered against the roof. The engine idled, a quiet, ominous purr. Outside, the old woman stood very still, mud-soaked, unbowed. Nathaniel swallowed. His gaze flicked to the side mirror, then forward again. When he spoke, it was barely above a whisper, something torn loose from a place he kept sealed. "Loretta." Charlotte's stomach dropped. She followed his gaze back to the woman in the rain, confusion blooming into something colder. He knew her. The way he said that name wasn't casual, it wasn't polite. "I was afraid." The old woman met Nathaniel's eyes. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Rain streaked between them, the world holding its breath. Then, Loretta Mae Johnson straightened her shoulders, wiped a muddy hand against her coat, and turned away slowly, deliberately, leaving the spilled groceries behind. Nathaniel exhaled, sharp and uneven. Charlotte stared at him, 1,000 questions clawing up her throat. "Who is she?" He didn't answer. The driver glanced back, uncertain. Charlotte felt the thrill drain from her, replaced by a hollow chill. The laughter that had filled her moments ago now tasted sour, wrong. She pressed her lips together, eyes fixed on the road ahead. Something had shifted. She didn't know what she had done, only that it wasn't finished with her yet. Enjoying the story so far? Tell us where you're watching from in the comments, and subscribe.
Loretta Mae Johnson woke before dawn, as she always did. Not because she needed to, but because sleep no longer trusted her. The small house in Hudson was quiet at that hour, the kind of quiet that held memories instead of peace. The radiator clicked softly. Somewhere outside, a delivery truck hissed past on wet pavement. Loretta sat at the narrow kitchen table with a mug of black coffee cooling between her hands. She didn't rush. She never rushed anymore. Time had stopped chasing her years ago. Through the window, the town looked modest and honest. Brick storefronts, bare trees. Sidewalks are still damp from yesterday's rain. This was a place where people nodded when they passed you, where dignity didn't need an audience. She liked it that way. On the counter beside her lay a small notebook, its pages worn thin. Numbers filled it, not lists, not plans, just patterns, columns, habits she couldn't break. Even now, her mind drifted back the way it often did in the quiet. Night offices, fluorescent lights humming overhead, the smell of industrial cleaner clinging to her clothes. She saw herself younger, stronger, pushing a mop down endless hallways in Newark while executives slept at home, unaware of how close their empire was to collapse. She remembered the ledgers, not because she went looking for them, but because they were wrong. Numbers didn't lie, people did. She had noticed it first in passing, the way certain figures never lined up, how money slipped through gaps no one wanted to see. Shell companies, false invoices, a slow bleed that would have gutted the Whitmore Group within months. Loretta had stayed late, night after night. She ran the math in her head while the building slept. When she finally spoke, it wasn't loud,
It wasn't public. She told one man, quietly. The crisis vanished. The company survived. The Whitmore name rose. And Loretta was thanked behind closed doors with a check, a contract she wasn't given time to read, and a reminder that some contributions were better left invisible. She signed. She always wondered if they knew how much they were taking from her when they asked for silence. The memory sharpened something in her chest, but she let it pass. Bitterness, when indulged, grew sloppy. Loretta had learned to keep hers honed and contained. She finished her coffee, pulled on her coat, and stepped out into the morning. At the food pantry, she moved with ease, greeting volunteers, sorting donations, lifting boxes others struggled with. People listened when she spoke, not because she demanded it, but because she didn't waste words. No one here knew her history. That was intentional. Power, Loretta had learned, didn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waited. She had chosen silence not because she was weak, but because she was patient. Around midday, she returned home to find a white envelope resting neatly in her mailbox. Thick, cream-colored, heavy. She paused. There was a crest embossed in gold at the corner. Whitmore. Loretta didn't open it right away. She brought it inside, set it on the table, and removed her coat with deliberate care. Her pulse was steady. Her hands did not shake. She sat. For a long moment, she simply looked at the envelope. Of course, the past always found a way back in. She slid a finger beneath the seal and opened it slowly. An invitation, formal, polite, wrapped in language that spoke of generosity and community and holiday spirit. A charity board meeting, her name printed clearly at the top. No apology, no acknowledgement, just an assumption. Loretta smiled, not with humor, but with recognition. They were inviting her into their space now, on their terms, after decades of erasure. She folded the letter once, then again. Outside, the town carried on, cars passing, someone laughing down the street, life continuing as if nothing had shifted. But something had. Loretta placed the invitation back on the table and reached for her notebook, her pen hovering for a brief second before touching the page. This wasn't a summons, it was an opening, and Loretta Mae Johnson had waited a very long time to decide how to step through it.
The Whitmore estate looked its best at night. Light spilled from the tall windows in warm, deliberate squares, turning glass and stone into something almost inviting. From the outside, it promised safety, success, permanence. From the inside, it echoed. Charlotte stood alone in the master bedroom, fastening diamond studs into her ears. Her reflection stared back from 3 angles, flawless, distant. She straightened her shoulders, practiced the smile that never quite reached her eyes. Downstairs, voices floated up, staff preparing, glasses clinking, soft laughter. Another dinner, another obligation, another performance where strangers would admire her polish and mistake it for happiness. Nathaniel entered without a sound. She felt him before she saw him, the subtle shift in the air, the weight of his presence. He stopped a few feet behind her, adjusting his cufflinks with precise movements. "They're ready," he said. "No, you look beautiful, no glance in the mirror." Charlotte nodded. "I'll be right there." He waited, silent, watching her reflection instead of her. She turned. "You could say something," she added lightly. "I did spend an hour getting ready." Nathaniel's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "You always look appropriate." Appropriate. The word landed like a door closing. She laughed softly, brushing it off, but something tightened in her chest. "Well, that's reassuring." He leaned in and brushed a brief kiss against her cheek, careful, measured, like someone testing water before stepping back. It was affection by calculation, not desire. When he pulled away, the space between them felt wider than before. They descended the staircase side by side, not touching. At dinner, Charlotte was radiant. She laughed at the right moments, remembered names, touched arms just long enough to seem warm. The guests adored her, complimented her grace, her charm, her luck.
Nathaniel spoke when necessary, controlled, thoughtful, commanding without effort. The room bent toward him naturally, gravity doing the work. Charlotte watched from the corner of her eye as people leaned in, hungry for his approval. He never looked back. Between courses, a woman leaned toward Charlotte. "You're so lucky," she said softly. "A man like that?" Charlotte smiled. She had perfected that smile. "Yes, I am." The lie came easily. Later, when the guests were gone and the staff retreated, the house exhaled into silence. Charlotte stood barefoot in the kitchen, rinsing her hands under warm water she didn't need. Nathaniel entered, loosening his tie. "You did well tonight." She turned off the faucet. "Is that all you ever say?" He paused and looked at her, really looked, like she was a problem to be solved. "What do you want me to say?" he asked. Her mouth opened, closed. "I want you to see me. I want you to want me." Instead, she shrugged. "Nothing." He nodded once, accepting the dismissal she offered. "Good night." And just like that, he was gone. Charlotte stood alone, staring at the darkened doorway. Her chest ached, not sharply, but constantly, a low pressure that never quite eased. She poured herself a glass of wine. She didn't drink it. The charity board meeting took place 3 days later in a converted community hall in Hudson. Folding chairs, fluorescent lights, coffee in mismatched mugs. Charlotte arrived late, heels clicking against linoleum, coat draped perfectly over her arm. The room quieted as she entered, heads turning, recognition flickering. She took her seat without looking around. Then she felt it, that same unsettling pull like a hand at the back of her neck. Charlotte looked up. Across the room, seated near the window, was the old woman, Loretta Mae Johnson. No mud now, no sign of weakness. A simple coat, neatly buttoned, silver hair pulled back, hands folded as she listened, nodding occasionally. Charlotte's stomach tightened. Loretta turned her head. Their eyes met. No accusation, no anger, just assessment. Charlotte shifted in her chair, suddenly aware of her posture, her breath, the sound of her pulse. She looked away first. The meeting dragged on. Budgets, schedules, holiday drives. Charlotte barely heard a word. When it ended, she stood quickly, gathering her things. She would leave immediately, no reason to linger. "Mrs. Whitmore." The voice was calm, certain. Charlotte stopped and turned. Loretta stood a few steps away, cane in hand. Up close, the lines on her face were deeper, etched by years Charlotte couldn't imagine. But there was strength there, control. "Yes," Charlotte said, polite and cool. "Thank you for sponsoring the winter program. The coats will help." "Of course, it's important." A pause settled between them. Loretta studied her, not rudely but thoroughly, as if reading something just beneath the surface. "You laughed," Charlotte stiffened. "Excuse me?" "In the car," Loretta continued. "You laughed." Heat crept up Charlotte's neck. "I don't know what you think you—" "I don't think anything," Loretta said gently. "I observed." Charlotte's jaw tightened. "If you're looking for an apology, I'm not." That stopped her. Loretta's eyes softened, not with kindness, but with understanding that felt far more dangerous. Cruelty doesn't come from nowhere. It grows where something is missing. "You don't know me," Charlotte snapped. Loretta held her gaze, didn't flinch. "No," she agreed, "but I know him." The words landed heavy. "You don't know my husband," Charlotte said. "You live in his house. You wear his name. You defend his silence." Charlotte's hands curled into fists. Loretta leaned in just enough for her next words to cut deep. "You don't know who you married." Charlotte stood frozen as Loretta straightened, nodding politely before turning away, her cane tapping a steady rhythm across the floor. "You don't know who you married." For the first time since the rain-soaked road, fear slipped in, quiet, unwelcome, curling beneath Charlotte's ribs. And this time, there was no laughter to drown it out. Have you ever felt unseen inside a relationship?
The holiday food drive took place in the Old Stone Parish Hall just off Main Street, dressed up in effort more than money. Strings of white lights hung unevenly along the ceiling beams, flickering now and then as if unsure of themselves. Cardboard boxes of canned goods lined the walls. Somewhere near the back, a small artificial tree leaned slightly to one side, its ornaments mismatched and chipped. Charlotte arrived with a practiced smile and a donation large enough to quiet any doubts about her presence. Her coat was tailored, ivory wool against a room of darker fabrics. She expected whispers, side glances, judgment dressed up as gratitude. She was ready for humiliation, for penance. She wasn't ready for Loretta. Loretta stood near the sorting tables, sleeves rolled up, hands steady as she directed volunteers half her age. She moved with ease, unafraid of the space or the people in it, as though she belonged anywhere she chose to stand. When Charlotte entered, Loretta looked up. No pause, no surprise, just calm acknowledgement. Charlotte's chest tightened. She waited for the sting, some sharp remark, a look meant to cut. Instead, Loretta nodded once, a simple greeting, and turned back to her work. It unsettled her more than cruelty would have. Charlotte drifted toward the center of the room, greeting people, accepting thanks. Her eyes kept pulling back to Loretta despite herself. There was something disarming about the way the older woman occupied the space, quietly authoritative, untouchable. Across the room, Nathaniel had arrived without fanfare. He stood near the entrance, coat still on, watching Loretta. His gaze tracked her movements with a focus Charlotte hadn't seen directed at her in months. Not warmth, not longing, recognition. Fear sat beneath it, barely concealed. Charlotte noticed. Of course she did. The awareness sparked sharp and bright, twisting low in her stomach. She followed his line of sight back to Loretta, trying to understand what she was missing. A sudden clatter broke the low hum of conversation. Near the tree, a volunteer gasped as an ornament slipped from the branches and shattered on the floor. Red glass burst outward, fragments skittering across the tiles like drops of frozen blood. The room stilled. Loretta crossed the space slowly, cane tapping once before she bent carefully, gathering the pieces with bare hands. Charlotte flinched. "Let me," Charlotte said quickly, stepping forward. "You'll cut yourself." Loretta looked at her, unreadable. "I've had worse." Charlotte hesitated, then knelt anyway. Together they collected the shards in silence, their hands moving close but never touching. The lights overhead flickered. For a brief second, the room dimmed, then brightened again. The moment stretched thin and strange, as if the world itself had paused to watch them. When they stood, Loretta held the broken ornament in her palm. "Some things don't survive being dropped," she said quietly. Charlotte swallowed. "I didn't mean—" "I know," Loretta replied. She met Charlotte's eyes. "Intent and impact aren't twins." The words settled heavy in Charlotte's chest. They moved to the side of the room, away from the noise. Loretta wiped her hands on a cloth, her movements unhurried. Charlotte waited, braced for whatever came next. But Loretta didn't accuse. She studied Charlotte instead, not critically, not kindly, honestly. "You live with a lot of quiet." Charlotte stiffened. "You don't know my life." Loretta tilted her head slightly. "No, but I recognize the sound of it." Charlotte felt exposed in a way she hadn't been in years. Her instinct was to defend herself, to retreat behind charm or sharpness. Instead, the words stalled in her throat. Across the hall, Nathaniel's gaze burned into them. She felt it like heat between her shoulder blades. "Your husband," Loretta continued, her voice low, "is a man who believes control is the same as care." Charlotte's breath caught. "You shouldn't talk about him." Loretta's mouth curved, not quite a smile. "I haven't said anything yet." She stepped back, creating space, giving Charlotte room to breathe. The restraint felt deliberate, merciful. "I didn't come here to shame you," Loretta said, "or to forgive you." Charlotte searched her face. "Then why are you here?" Loretta glanced toward the volunteers, the food boxes, the flickering lights overhead.
"Because this matters," she said, "and because sometimes the people who hurt us are standing closer to the wound than they realize." The words landed softly and cut deep. Charlotte felt it then, not condemnation, but judgment sharpened by understanding. Loretta saw her, not the coat, not the name, the woman underneath. Nathaniel stepped forward then, his presence sudden and heavy. Loretta turned to face him, her expression unchanged. For a moment, the three of them stood in a loose triangle beneath the trembling lights, past, present, and consequence, colliding in silence. Loretta broke it first. "Good evening, Mr. Whitmore. Happy holidays." She walked away, cane tapping steadily, leaving Charlotte with 1,000 unasked questions and a growing certainty that the ground beneath her marriage was already cracking.
The storm arrived without ceremony. Snow began as a whisper, then thickened into something heavy and relentless, swallowing the grounds of the Whitmore estate in white. Wind rattled the tall windows, branches scraping against stone like restless fingers. By the time night fell, the mansion felt cut off from the world, too large, too quiet, too empty. Charlotte sat alone in the living room, wrapped in a cashmere throw she didn't feel. A half-finished glass of wine rested on the table beside her, untouched. She stared into the dark fireplace, listening to the wind moan through the trees. Nathaniel was gone. A late meeting, he'd said, or maybe no explanation at all. The days blurred together that way now, his absence more reliable than his presence. The lights flickered, once, twice. Then everything went black. Charlotte gasped, heart leaping, as the hum of electricity died. Silence rushed in, thick and unsettling. Outside, the storm howled louder, emboldened. She fumbled for her phone. No signal, of course. She stood, suddenly too aware of the vastness around her. The mansion creaked and settled, every sound magnified. She wrapped the throw tighter around herself, her breath shallow. A knock echoed through the house. Charlotte froze. Another knock, firm, certain. Her first instinct was fear, raw and unfiltered. She grabbed a flashlight from the drawer, fingers trembling as she moved toward the door. Each step felt heavier than the last. She opened it. Loretta stood on the threshold, snow clinging to her coat, cane planted firmly in the ground. The porch light cast her face in stark relief, calm, unbothered, as if storms were nothing new to her. "The power's out, all over town," Loretta said. "Thought you might not know." Charlotte stared, words lodged in her throat. You came all the way out here?" Loretta nodded once. "I did." Charlotte stepped aside without thinking, letting her in. Inside, the cold followed Loretta briefly, then settled. Charlotte lit a few candles, their flames trembling as much as she felt. Shadows leapt along the walls, stretching and shrinking, making the room feel smaller. They stood facing each other, the distance between them charged. "I didn't expect you," Charlotte said finally. "I know," Loretta replied. The honesty in her tone cracked something open. Charlotte's laugh came out brittle. "Is this where you tell me what a terrible person I am?" Loretta removed her coat slowly, deliberately. "No." "Then why are you here?" Charlotte snapped. "To make me feel worse? To remind me what I did?" Loretta met her gaze, unflinching. "I'm here because you're drowning, and because pretending you aren't won't save you." The words hit harder than any accusation. Charlotte turned away, pacing. "I don't know what it's like," she said, voice rising, "living here, being invisible in your own life." Loretta watched her carefully. "I know exactly what it's like." "You don't," Charlotte spun back. "I do," Loretta said quietly. I gave decades to a man and a company that built their fortune on my silence. I was useful until I wasn't. Then I was erased." Charlotte's breath stuttered. She stopped moving. Loretta stepped closer, her voice steady. "Your husband's empire exists because I saved it. And when I did, they made sure my name disappeared." The room seemed to tilt. Charlotte shook her head. "That's not possible." "It is," Loretta said, "and it's true." The words sank deep, rearranging everything Charlotte thought she knew. Her knees buckled, and she sank onto the sofa, the weight of it crushing her chest. "All this time," Charlotte whispered, "all this time I thought I was failing, that I wasn't enough." Loretta didn't respond. Tears spilled over, hot and uncontrollable. Charlotte pressed her face to her hands, shoulders shaking. "I laughed," she said brokenly. "I laughed because I felt powerful for once, because I felt seen." Her voice cracked completely, and it was disgusting. Loretta stood there, letting the silence stretch. She did not reach out, did not soften the moment, because this pain needed to be felt. Charlotte sobbed until her breath came in ragged gasps, until the truth settled heavy and unavoidable. The emptiness, the cruelty, the shame, they were hers to own. Finally, Loretta spoke. "Pain doesn't excuse harm, but it explains it." Charlotte looked up, eyes red, face stripped of every defense. "What do I do?" Loretta studied her for a long moment, candlelight flickering across her features. Then she asked, gently but with deadly precision, "Do you want to be better or just forgiven?" The question hung between them, sharp and inescapable. The storm had thinned to a quiet snowfall by morning, the kind that looked gentle and erased tracks without apology. The mansion woke slowly, wrapped in white and silence. Nathaniel Whitmore arrived just after dawn. Charlotte heard him before she saw him, the measured footfalls, the subtle shift in the air that always accompanied his presence. She stayed still at the top of the staircase, half hidden by the shadow of the banister, her heart beating too loudly in her ears. Loretta stood in the living room below, cane resting against the arm of a chair. She didn't look surprised to see him. If anything, she looked prepared. Nathaniel removed his gloves with meticulous care, setting them on the console table as if this were any other morning. His coat remained on, armor. "You shouldn't be here," he said calmly. Loretta's gaze didn't waver. "You invited me back into your world the moment you sent that letter." "That invitation was procedural," Nathaniel replied. "This," he gestured lightly around the room, "is not." Charlotte pressed her hand to the railing, holding herself steady. Loretta tilted her head. "You always did confuse control with consent." A faint smile touched Nathaniel's mouth. Not warmth, calculation. "I prefer clarity," he said, "and here it is. You will leave this house today, quietly." Loretta nodded once. "And if I don't?" Nathaniel stepped closer. The space between them tightened, charged. "Then I'll remind you how small you are." Charlotte flinched. Loretta didn't. "You already tried that," Loretta said. "It worked for a while, but you made a mistake." Nathaniel's eyes sharpened. "Did I?" "You assumed silence meant surrender," Loretta said softly. "It didn't. It meant patience." Nathaniel studied her, the calm beginning to crack just enough to show what lived underneath. "You signed the agreements," he said. "You took the money. You walked away." "I was pushed," Loretta replied, "and you know it." Silence pressed down on the room. The only sound was the faint tick of the clock on the wall. Nathaniel's voice lowered. "You're romanticizing the past. That's dangerous." Loretta smiled then, not kindly. "No, what's dangerous is forgetting who kept your father out of prison." Charlotte's breath caught. Her stomach dropped, cold and fast. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "Careful. Or what? You'll erase me again?" He leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper. "I can." The threat was gentle, polite, absolute.
Charlotte felt something inside her shatter, the last illusion of distance between herself and the harm done in her name. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was who he was when no one was watching. Loretta glanced upward then, her eyes lifted just enough to find Charlotte in the shadows. Their gazes met. Charlotte froze. Loretta didn't call her out, didn't expose her. She simply let Charlotte see. Nathaniel noticed the shift. He turned. Their eyes locked. "How long have you been standing there?" he asked. Charlotte swallowed. Her voice came out thin. "Long enough." Nathaniel straightened, smoothing the front of his coat. The mask slid back into place with practiced ease. "You shouldn't be listening to unfinished conversations." Loretta picked up her cane. "Some conversations are unfinished because you never allow them to end honestly." Nathaniel ignored her, his attention fixed on Charlotte now. "This does not concern you." Charlotte stepped down one stair. "She saved your company." "She's rewriting history," Nathaniel said evenly. Loretta shook her head. "I'm correcting it." Charlotte's hands trembled. She clasped them together, nails biting into skin. "Is it true?" she asked him. Did your family?" Nathaniel's eyes hardened. "Stay focused. Answer me." He exhaled slowly, as if indulging a child. "What's true is that nothing you enjoy exists with difficult decisions. People get hurt. That's the cost." Charlotte recoiled as if struck. The word people echoed in her mind, faceless, disposable. Loretta watched her, something like sadness passing through her eyes. "This is the part where you decide," she said quietly, "whether comfort matters more than conscience." Nathaniel took a step toward Charlotte, his presence looming, voice low and final. "You will not involve yourself in this. You will not speak to her again." Charlotte looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the man behind the fortune at last. Cold, certain, untouched by regret. Fear replaced entitlement in her chest, sharp and undeniable. Nathaniel's gaze pinned her in place as he delivered the warning that sealed the moment. "Stay out of this."
The holiday fundraiser filled the municipal hall with forced cheer. Evergreen garlands draped the railings. A string quartet played softly near the stage, their notes floating above the murmur of polite conversation. People arrived wrapped in wool coats and practiced smiles, shaking off the cold as if it were an inconvenience they could afford to forget. Charlotte stood at the podium, hands braced lightly against the wood. She hadn't planned this. The apology had come to her in fragments over sleepless nights, moments of clarity that refused to stay buried. But now, with the room watching, it settled into something solid, unavoidable. Loretta sat near the front, coat folded neatly in her lap, posture straight. She didn't look up when Charlotte's name was announced. She didn't need to. Charlotte inhaled slowly. "I want to say something," she began. The room stilled, cameras tilted upward. Nathaniel, seated a few rows back, shifted in his chair, his attention sharpening. Charlotte's gaze found Loretta at last. "Earlier this season," she said, her voice steady, "I harmed someone." A ripple of discomfort moved through the crowd. "I did it knowingly. I did it carelessly. And I did it because I thought power made me untouchable." Whispers sparked. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Charlotte didn't look at him. "There are no excuses, and there will be no explanations to make this easier to hear." She turned fully toward Loretta now, her hands trembling, but her voice firm. "Miss Johnson, what I did to you was cruel. You deserved dignity, and I denied you that. I am sorry." No tears fell, no quiver invited sympathy, just truth. For a moment, the room held its breath. Loretta lifted her head slowly. Their eyes met. Loretta gave a small nod, acknowledgement, not absolution. That was enough. The silence broke unevenly. Conversations resumed in hushed tones. Eyes followed Charlotte as she stepped down from the stage, some curious, some disapproving. The backlash was immediate. A woman brushed past her without greeting. Another whispered too loudly.
Invitations dissolved, smiles cooled. Charlotte felt each slight keenly and accepted them. This was the cost. She found Loretta near the refreshment table and stood beside her without speaking, a quiet show of alignment. When a man approached, offering Loretta a condescending smile and an unnecessary comment about moving on, Charlotte stepped forward. "She doesn't need your forgiveness. She never asked for it." The man flushed and retreated. Across the room, Nathaniel watched, his expression unreadable. The subtle authority he wielded so effortlessly was slipping, just enough for him to feel it. Later, as the event continued, Charlotte busied herself with work that didn't photograph well, clearing plates, carrying boxes, refilling trays. People noticed, some scoffed, others watched quietly, reassessing. Loretta observed it all without comment. Near the end of the evening, the quartet shifted into a slower melody. Snow pressed against the windows, thick and bright under the streetlights. Loretta rose from her chair, steadying herself with her cane. Charlotte noticed the pause in her movement, the brief falter. "Are you all right?" Charlotte asked softly. Loretta opened her mouth to respond and didn't. Her face was drained of color, her grip loosened, the cane clattered to the floor. "Loretta!" Charlotte caught her just as her knees buckled, arms wrapping around her shoulders to keep her from hitting the ground. The music stuttered to a stop, gasps rippled through the hall. Nathaniel surged forward, but Charlotte's voice cut through the chaos. "Call an ambulance, now!" She lowered Loretta carefully to the floor, cradling her head, murmuring reassurance she wasn't sure Loretta could hear. Fear flared hot and sharp in her chest, but she didn't step back. Not this time, not again. As sirens wailed in the distance, Charlotte looked up to find Nathaniel staring at her, something unfamiliar crossing his face. Loss of control. And for the first time, Charlotte didn't look away. Would you have looked away?
Rain hammered the hospital windows in relentless sheets, turning the night outside into a blur of light and shadow. Sirens faded into the distance, replaced by the low hum of fluorescent lights and the sharp scent of antiseptic. Charlotte stood just outside the emergency room, arms wrapped around herself, coat forgotten somewhere behind her. Her hands were still trembling. Every few seconds, she glanced at the closed doors where Loretta had been taken, her chest tightening with each passing minute. Nathaniel paced once, then stopped. "Enough," he said quietly. Charlotte turned. His voice was calm, controlled, but something brittle lived beneath it. "This ends tonight," he continued. "You don't belong in this." Her mouth opened, closed. She was tired of shrinking. "She collapsed because of stress," Nathaniel added. "You stirred things that should have stayed buried." Charlotte's heart pounded. "You buried them." He stiffened. The doors swung open and Loretta emerged slowly, a thin blanket draped around her shoulders, a nurse hovering nearby. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp, alert. Nathaniel moved first. "You shouldn't be walking." Loretta met his gaze. "You don't get to manage me." The nurse hesitated, then stepped back at Loretta's quiet insistence. The three of them stood there, hospital corridor, rain roaring beyond the glass, truth pressing in from every side. "You put her in danger," Nathaniel said, his voice tight. Loretta laughed softly. "No, you did, decades ago." Charlotte's heart felt the weight of that settle into her bones. Nathaniel lowered his voice. "You're romanticizing old grievances. You signed away your claims." Loretta stepped closer. Each movement was deliberate. "I signed under coercion," she said, "and you know it." "That won't hold," he replied. Loretta's mouth curved slightly. "It already has." Charlotte looked between them. "What does she mean?" Nathaniel didn't answer. Loretta turned to Charlotte then, her gaze steady.
"After your father-in-law died, I amended my records," she said, quietly. "Copies of ledgers, correspondence, dates, names." Nathaniel's face drained of color. "I placed them in escrow, to be released if I was ever threatened, erased, or," her eyes flicked briefly to Charlotte, "humiliated again." The rain thundered harder, as if punctuating every word. Nathaniel took a step back. "You wouldn't," Loretta said. "I already have." Silence crashed down between them. Charlotte stared at Nathaniel, realization dawning cold and sharp. "You've been lying," she said, "not just to me, to everyone." His jaw tightened. "This is business." "No," Charlotte said, her voice rising. "This is theft. This is abuse, and you let me wear it like a crown." Something cracked in him then, not loudly, but visibly. His shoulders sagged just a fraction. The mask slipped. "I did what was necessary. People like us don't survive by being sentimental." Charlotte stepped closer, rain-streaked light reflecting in her eyes. "You didn't protect me," she said. "You hid behind me." Loretta watched them, sadness softening her expression. "I didn't come to destroy you," she told Nathaniel. "I came to stop you." Nathaniel looked at Charlotte, really looked at her for what felt like years. "If you stay," he said quietly, "we can fix this." Charlotte shook her head. "You don't know how." Tears finally spilled, not dramatic, not performative, honest. "I became someone I hate, trying to earn love you never planned to give. That ends now." The words landed like a verdict. Outside, lightning split the sky, illuminating the rain-soaked city beyond the glass. The marriage they'd built on silence, power, and fear stood exposed and crumbling. Loretta drew her blanket tighter and turned away. "Truth always leaks," she said. "Rain just makes it visible." Charlotte watched Nathaniel as security approached, their steps measured and final. He didn't resist, he didn't speak. For the first time, there was nothing left for him to control. Charlotte exhaled shakily, the weight of it all pressing down, relief tangled with grief. The rain kept falling, and nothing between them would ever be hidden again.
Morning arrived softly, as if the world were apologizing. Sunlight filtered through the hospital curtains in pale ribbons, warming the room just enough to take the edge off the night. The rain had passed. In its place was a hush that felt earned, fragile, careful, real. Loretta slept with one hand resting on the blanket, fingers relaxed for the first time in days. The steady rhythm of the monitor rose and fell beside her, patient and reassuring. Charlotte sat in the chair near the bed, shoes kicked off, hair pulled back in a careless knot. She held a paper cup of coffee that had gone cold long ago. She didn't drink it. She didn't need it. She watched Loretta breathe. Every now and then, Loretta stirred, brows knitting briefly, lips parting as if to speak to someone only she could see. Charlotte leaned forward each time, ready, attentive, unafraid of the waiting. When Loretta finally opened her eyes, the corners of them crinkled faintly. "You look terrible," Loretta murmured. Charlotte laughed, a small, surprised sound that broke free before she could stop it. "You should see me after a full night's sleep." Loretta hummed. "I'll pass." The room settled into something gentle. Charlotte rose and adjusted the blanket around Loretta's shoulders, her movements careful, respectful. No rush, no performance. "Doctor said you'll be fine," Charlotte said quietly. "They want to keep you one more night." Loretta nodded. "Figures. I always overstay." Charlotte smiled, then sobered. "I'm glad you're here." The words felt heavier than she expected. Loretta studied her face, seeing the change, not dramatic, not complete, but real. "You stayed," Loretta said.
Yes, even when it got hard, Charlotte swallowed, especially then. Loretta closed her eyes briefly, letting the moment pass through her. When she opened them again, something like approval lived there, not freely given, but no longer withheld. Down the hall, a familiar presence lingered. Nathaniel stood near the window at the end of the corridor, jacket still on, phone untouched in his hand. He hadn't come into the room. He hadn't tried. The distance was new and deserved. Charlotte noticed him when she stepped out to speak to a nurse. He looked somehow smaller, not diminished, but stripped of certainty. When their eyes met, he nodded once, nothing more. The silence between them remained unresolved, thick with history, frayed by truth. Charlotte didn't move towards him. He didn't ask her to. Some fractures needed time, some needed space. When Charlotte returned to the room, Loretta was awake again, gaze thoughtful. "He's still here," Loretta said, not asking. "Yes." Loretta sighed softly. "Men like him don't disappear overnight." "I don't expect him to," replied Charlotte. "I just won't disappear for him anymore." Loretta smiled at that, slow, genuine. They passed the afternoon in easy quiet. A nurse came and went. Snow drifted lazily past the window. Charlotte read aloud from a dog-eared magazine Loretta had brought, stumbling over an article that made no sense to either of them. Loretta chuckled. "They really will sell anything as wisdom." Charlotte grinned. "I used to believe it all." "Most people do, until life corrects them." As dusk approached, Charlotte helped Loretta sit up, adjusting pillows, pouring water. Their hands brushed now and then, contact unremarkable and intimate all at once. "About forgiveness," Charlotte said suddenly. Loretta looked at her. "I don't expect it, not quickly, maybe not ever." Loretta considered her. "Forgiveness isn't a gift, it's a process." Charlotte nodded. "I'm willing to do the work." Loretta reached out then, taking Charlotte's hand in hers. Her grip was warm, steady. "That's why I stayed," Loretta said quietly. "Not because you fell, but because you stood back up." Charlotte felt tears press at her eyes, not sharp, not overwhelming, the kind that came from relief. "You're not finished yet," Loretta added. Charlotte squeezed her hand gently. "I know." Outside, the last of the storm's clouds drifted apart, revealing a sky washed clean. The world didn't feel fixed, but it felt possible. And for the first time, Charlotte believed that might be enough. Do you believe people can change?
Snow fell on the city like a benediction, soft, steady, indiscriminate. The news broke quietly, the way real consequences often do, not with sirens or scandal, but with filings, injunctions, boardroom votes taken behind closed doors. A division of the Whitmore Group was placed under review, then another. Contracts paused, accounts frozen pending investigation. Nathaniel Whitmore did not fight publicly. He appeared once, briefly, at the edge of the frame as reporters shouted questions he did not answer. His silence, once a weapon, now read as admission. Old allies distanced themselves. Advisors spoke in careful tones. The empire did not collapse, but it was carved, precise and irreversible. What was taken could not be put back. Charlotte watched the coverage from a small apartment she'd chosen herself, sunlit, modest, honest. A wreath hung on the door, a candle burned on the windowsill. She packed boxes slowly, deliberately, donating what she didn't need, keeping what felt earned. She signed papers with a steady hand, no theatrics, no bitterness. Independence, she learned, had a sound, the quiet click of a door closing behind you without regret. Nathaniel came once. He stood in the hallway, coat buttoned, eyes tired.
He did not ask her to return. He did not apologize in the way she needed. He offered logistics, protection, familiar structures. Charlotte declined them all with grace. "I won't be held in silence anymore," she said. He nodded. That was all he had left. Loretta returned to Hudson before the first carolers appeared on Main Street. She resumed her routines: food pantry on Tuesdays, ledger notebook in the mornings, long walks when the weather allowed. No interviews, no victory lap. A modest endowment appeared quietly, routed through a foundation with no press release attached. Scholarships funded, a community audit program launched, names added to a plaque few people noticed, but the right people did. Loretta visited once more, just before Christmas. She and Charlotte shared tea at the small kitchen table, steam rising between them. Snow gathered on the sill. They spoke of ordinary things: weather, recipes, the relief of sleeping through the night. When it was time to leave, Loretta paused at the door. "I kept one thing back," she said, almost casually. Charlotte looked up. "A fail-safe," Loretta continued, "if the records were buried again, if the truth was pressured into silence." She reached into her coat and placed a slim envelope on the table. Not heavy, not dramatic. "Copies of everything," Loretta said, "held by people who know what to do with them." Charlotte didn't touch it. She didn't need to. Loretta smiled, small and certain. Silence ends when someone refuses to carry it alone. They embraced, brief, sincere, and Loretta stepped into the snow. That night, Charlotte lit the candle again and watched the flakes drift down, each one erasing a little more of what had been. Some wounds would scar, some questions would linger, but the truth had held. And in the quiet of a winter evening, with justice done and healing begun, the world seemed to breathe easier. Some fortunes survive money, others survive truth. Would you have forgiven Charlotte after what she did, if she truly chose change over comfort? Or would you have walked away, even knowing redemption takes time? Your thoughts might shape a continuation of this story or inspire the next one. If this story moved you, stay close. The next one is tender, layered, and quietly unforgettable.